NDA21Z. That is the license.
The broadcast could help catch the snipers, or it could alert the fugitives to the fact that the hunt is on. Was it reckless to report this information without police approval? 11:50 p.m. Chief Moose releases a photograph of 41-year-old John Mohammed. Authorities are seeking him on a federal firearms charge. They believe he is traveling with a minor. The 24th of October, 12:45 a.m. Fridge repairman Whitney Donahue is driving home along a road called the I-70 near Frederick, Maryland, about 45 miles northwest of Washington, D.C.
The authorities are looking nationwide for two individuals, one young man.
He hears a news report describing the killer's vehicle, a Caprice like the one he himself owns. He makes a mental note to keep an eye out for it. Donahue is tired and decides to take a break. He pulls into this lay-by. Then he sees it. A Chevy Caprice, a dark color with New Jersey license plates. Donahue slowly backs into a parking space and uses his mobile phone to call the police. A SWAT team made up of county, state and federal officers assembles and plans the arrest. 3:15 a.m. They storm the car, kick in the windows and drag two men from the vehicle. It appears the hunt for the DC sniper is over.
We have very fast-developing details on this fluid story.
The men were found sleeping in the car and were arrested.
Police identify the men as 41-year-old John Allen Muhammad and 17-year-old Lee Boyd Malvo. Police who have spent 3 weeks in terror want to know who are Muhammad and Malvo.
Friends say the two suspects in the sniper shootings had a father-son relationship but weren't even related. Here's a look at the connection between
And perhaps
John
the
Muhammad
biggest question of all, why did they kill? Coming next on The Final Report. The 24th of October 2002. Federal authorities arrest two suspects in the DC sniper case. 41-year-old John Muhammad and 17-year-old Lee Malvo.
The focus today is really on who's going to prosecute this case.
The 25th of October. It's less than 24 hours since the arrests. Already, prosecutors in Montgomery County, Maryland, and several Virginia counties begin to vie over who will prosecute Muhammad and Malvo.
The Montgomery County State's Attorney came right out of the gate with charges. No one had more shootings, and no one had a greater impact than the folks in Montgomery County.
But the suspects were in federal custody at the time of their arrest. This means that the U.S. Attorney General, John Ashcroft, will decide.
I consider the matters charged in the federal indictment today to be
Early in November 2002,
atrocities.
he announces that the two men will be tried first in Virginia. The state of Virginia has a new anti-terrorism law. Drafted after 9/11, it makes it a capital crime to kill in the course of trying to intimidate the public or influence the government. The sniper cases land on the desks of Virginia prosecutors Paul Ebert and Robert Horan. With Muhammad and Malvo under arrest, the killing spree ends. But the story is not over. There are many questions that need to be answered, beginning with, who are Muhammad and Malvo? The answers investigators discover is that they are two men who happen to share the same kinds of hatred. John Muhammad was born John Allen Williams in New Orleans on New Year's Eve in 1960. Married and divorced twice, he has 4 children. He serves 9 years in the Army, rises to the rank of sergeant, and earns an expert marksman badge. During his time in the Army, he shows a reckless, violent streak. Saudi Arabia, 1990. Muhammad is stationed here during the Gulf War. He allegedly tosses an incendiary grenade into a tent filled with soldiers, setting it on fire.
He was alleged and attempted to rescue them, and that backfired on him, and as a result of that, he was disciplined.
Williams later claims that while he was in the brig, his army guards physically and psychologically abused him. In 1994, he receives an honorable discharge from the army. His second wife, Mildred, later tells a journalist that her husband returned from the Persian Gulf a different person. He was angry and bitter. She said, "I didn't know this man. He didn't want anyone to become close to him." Soon after, Williams and his wife joined the Nation of Islam. It's an American religious organization that combines elements of traditional Islamic doctrine with black nationalism. The group's leader, Minister Louis Farrakhan, is known for his extremist views, including anti-Semitic and anti-white rhetoric. By 1994, Williams, his wife, and their 3 children are living in Tacoma, Washington. He sets up a garage, but the business goes bust. With a partner, he then establishes a karate school, hoping to recruit Muslim students. It too fails. Williams' life is in a downward spiral. Late in 1999, he has a bitter breakup with his wife, Mildred. On the 27th of March 2000, Mohammed collects his children from school and flies them to Antigua in the Caribbean. Local authorities suspect he is a con man who supports himself with various scams, including selling forged US travel documents. One of his customers in Antigua is a local woman. She emigrates to Florida, leaving behind her teenage son, Lee Malvo. After his mother leaves, Malvo moves in with John Williams and his children. The 2 men form a close bond. Malvo begins reading the Quran.
I think Malvo was very much taken with Mohammed. Mohammed had this image of really a tough guy. Been to war. He was a big-time warrior.
In 2001, Williams returns to the United States with his children and Malvo. When Williams's ex-wife discovers that he's back, she regains custody of their children. It's at this point investigators learn that John Williams legally changes his name to John Mohammed. He and Malvo drift around the country claiming to be father and son.
He became very anti-American. He felt like America had not treated him well, had not treated his race well. There was evidence that when 9/11 occurred, he felt that America got what it deserved.
Prosecutors say Lee Malvo told a jail guard that he and Mohammed chose Montgomery County, Maryland for most of the killings because he said that's where the rich people lived. He hoped the murder spree would terrorize the community. Malvo admitted that he hated white people because he felt they had tried to injure the Nation of Islam's leader, Louis Farrakhan. Whatever their motivation, the snipers managed to murder 10 people in public places. How could the 2 men kill in broad daylight without leaving a trace? Prosecutors believe careful organization and planning allowed Mohammed and Malvo to scout locations and stalk their prey.
The car had been altered to become really what we call a killing machine.
Inside Mohammed's Chevy Caprice, police find this global positioning system used to plot their getaways, these local maps which mark their targets, and this laptop for keeping track of the killings. The rear seat is loosened to provide access to the boot. There's a slot cut here, just above the license plate. It's big enough for the barrel of a rifle. Someone shooting can scramble from the back seat to the boot, mark his target through the slot, and fire without being seen. After his arrest, Malvo told his interrogators he would curl up like a spare tire after taking a shot. The aging car gave the men a platform from which to find their target, shoot, and escape without arousing suspicion.
Malvo constantly talked about the necessity of a team. You work together. One man spots, the other man shoots.
We felt that from the circumstantial evidence that Mohammed perhaps was the so-called captain of the killing team.
The murders left many people in the region wondering if there was a pattern to the killings. Was there any connection among the victims? The answer is no. Police Chief Charles Moose, now retired, tells the final report that investigators spent a lot of time looking for a connection.
We're thinking, well, whoever's doing this must be doing it for some reason, and you try to look for that connection to lead us hopefully back to the perpetrator. But even then, we find out there really is no connection.
Prosecutors say Mohammed and Malvo carefully selected their shooting locations, finding vantage points that allowed maximum concealment and fast escape. Forensic tests show that the rifle found in the car is the murder weapon. The snipers used this Bushmaster XM15, a rifle that fires 223 caliber rounds. The military-style weapon is known for its accuracy and power. In the Caprice, police also find a silencer that dampens the sound of a gunshot. For the public, seeing the suspects in custody was a great relief. It was also puzzling. For 3 weeks, investigators and journalists led the public to assume that the killers had been driving and shooting from a white truck. Police spent countless hours investigating this lead. In the hunt for a white truck, were other clues ignored? The answer, yes, by both the police and the media. Initially, journalists had only one angle to pursue, the white truck.
As an Isuzu box truck.
And the media, because we were all looking for new information, something to help the public, immediately latched onto that.
Police officials tell the final report that during their investigation they warned journalists that no one had actually seen a shot fired from a white truck. But it's the kind of vehicle police repeatedly told journalists that they were looking for. So naturally, the media focused the public's attention on that, and not the Caprice.
The white box truck turned out to be the best disguise those snipers could have ever hoped for.
In fact, police encountered the suspects and their dark blue Chevy Caprice several times during the investigation. For example, after the school shooting, a Baltimore police officer came across John Mohammed sleeping in the Caprice.
So he kind of knocked on the window and spoke to Mohammed, saw his identification, had no reason to arrest him, really just checked to see, what are you doing? And he said he had been traveling or whatever, and he was taking a rest.
The officer found no evidence of a crime, nor did police in several other instances.
The people that after the fact said, well, they were here on this day and you missed them, and they were here this day and you talked to them. You know, those are very painful things to have pointed out. The police involved followed all of the constitutional rights that those people deserve and sent them on their way.
Throughout the 3-week investigation, criminal profilers on television repeatedly speculated about what type of person could commit such horrible crimes. They believed the killer was most likely to be a white man aged between 20 and 40. Why did the criminal profilers believe a white man was the sniper? The answer is simple: statistics. 80% of serial killers, men like John Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and Ted Bundy, are white men. Most are in their 20s and 30s. Investigators tell the final report that the media speculation about a white man in a white van hampered the public's ability to be good eyewitnesses.
The self-proclaimed experts said, all my information is it has to be a white male that would do this kind of thing. And what we found is the public would start to believe what they were saying. And they would start to wonder.